Good morning and welcome everyone. I'm Joanne Arbuckle and I am Deputy to the President of FIT for Industry Partnerships and Collaborative Programs. That is a very long title. And the only reason I mention it is because in that role, I have the opportunity to interact with a wide cross-section of the creative industries, particularly those that are of special interest to FIT with our wide variety of degree programs in business and design. When it comes to sustainability and innovation, FIT believes that the creative industry should lead the way, technologically, ethically, and socially. And in my role, I have been very impressed with some of the exciting ideas, products, and experiments I have witnessed. So today, four very inventive, thoughtful leaders in various sections of the industry are here to discuss all of that. Our first speaker, Meghan Marsden, is co-founder of Veil Intimates, a bra company dedicated to customization and comfort. And I am sure many of you join me in being all for that. She is a born entrepreneur with a background in healthcare, logistics, and real estate, who formed several of her own companies by her mid-20s. Sustainability has been a driving force in all of her endeavors. FIT faculty have collaborated with Veil as members of their R&D team. Please join me in welcoming Meghan.
My name is Meghan Marsden, as Joanne said. I'm co-founder of Veil Intimates. I'm honored to be here speaking with you today to talk about our company Veil, what we've been working on, how we utilize sustainable practices as the core of our business, how we integrate biomimicry, technology, and data science to change how intimates are formed and what is also happening in the intimates market in the form of disruption. Veil Intimates is an innovation technology company that partners with brands to create a unique support system inside of bra cups and bras. We are predominantly focused on intimates, traditional foundations, sportswear, and swimwear. We are honored to be here to speak to you about how we got here, our story, and how we're integrating it with brands today. So Veil Intimates, we aren't from the fashion industry. We are women in business. And we had this amazing idea that started as friends, as many founders have ideas that start in this way. We were shopping at a lingerie store, spending far too much money on a summer sidewalk sale, and buying too many things and realizing how could we spend so much money and why are bras still so uncomfortable? Yes, exactly. And from that, we said, well, how hard could it be to change how bras are made? And if you're not laughing at that, you should be, because bras are a feat of physics. They are one of the most complex garments to make. But we had this spark, this passion, this idea of why not and how. So as we were continuing in our careers, our entrepreneurship journey was on the weekends and going to trade shows. So we started learning how we could make garments. How is a bra even made? What is two-way and four-stretch fabric? I mean, some very simple things that many people in the industry already knew. But we took the time, we walked around LA's garment district, talked to sourcing domestically and internationally, and built our story and understanding and knowledge. And it became very, very apparent that our reality and our spark was more like this. We were way over our heads. And so this amazing dream, this spark we had, we soon realized that we really needed to understand and build our team, who was much more aware, competent, and knowledgeable about the industry. So we had built an advisory team of really successful business owners that were in different industries, and some of the best possible partner or institution that can help fill the voids of your knowledge. With that, we cold called FIT, and we got a meeting with Joanne Arbuckle. And Joanne took our meeting and we talked to her about our vision and our idea of creating a more comfortable piece of apparel that women had to wear every day, but didn't compromise in the aesthetic. And from there, we put together this phenomenal team to help guide our research and development and fill in our gaps in knowledge. We very much were competent in business and how to build a business and how to grow a business, but what that meant in the intimates industry, what that meant in the apparel industry, and how to create validated science behind it was a whole nother ballgame. So thankfully, FIT gave us professors to help build out our team, as well as external partners in design and engineering and chemistry. So from that, we were able to move forward into this amazing space of the bra renaissance. So as we began working, we've been doing this for a few years, we've been building our knowledge, and all these other amazing entrepreneurs are surfacing in the apparel market, in athletic wear, and in intimates. The venture capital firms started pouring money into the space and building this amazing renaissance for the bra market. There are startups happening. Finally, female founders are part of the conversation in intimates, and companies are exploding all over the place, as well as how consumers are buying intimates. The bralette market was growing extensively, as well as a reduction in the underwire market because consumers were desiring comfort, just like we were. And so all of this is happening at the same time. The bra renaissance is happening. We're educating ourselves over the last few years, creating our partnership with FIT and really learning more about how intimates work as an industry and how they work as a garment. So then we spent time saying, we know how to do this in our gut. We know how to do this, sort of, in prototyping. But how do we actually validate that this is going to change a marketplace? What's the science and data behind it? And how do we address that? So we live in Colorado, a phenomenal place that has access to aerospace, automotive. Lockheed Martin is a large part of our community. And so we started using this amazing system called ANSYS that is predominantly used in building rocket ships and automotive. And we created our Athena, which is a female form inside of a physics modeling system. From that, we gained as much data as we could on the science of movement and understanding how when a woman stands, what's happening, when a woman walks, what's happening, and when she jogs, what's happening. And so really capturing all those things, not in a single size form, but in every size. So really understanding what the impacts are of different sizing and the support needs for each size. So we weren't scientists, obviously, when we began. But now I definitely feel like we're scientists. We didn't understand that deformation, strain, and stress really meant pain, discomfort, and bends. And so from there, it was really essential for validating our vision to bring science and data into that space and really understand the amount of force that we were working with different sized women and how we needed to combat that. To give a woman the shape she desires without pain and discomfort. So we measured those things just as a woman is naturally, as well in different forms of apparel, whether it be an underwire or a sports bra or a bralette. Once we had the science down, we really started seeking out nature and nature's forms of strength. So there is nature all around us that is showing us already how to be strong in different aspects in geometry. How do tree branches hold leaves? How do honeycombs hold honey? And how do spider webs hold spiders with such a thin strand? So we really sought and spent about 8 months of time understanding biomimicry and how we can mimic geometry that we have seen in nature into the geometry of our support system inside of bras. So we spent time prototyping a lot in this season, and we worked to understand it better and better, leveraging the time-tested learnings, really with a catalog of products that we see in nature. And because we're in Colorado, it's not too far to get some inspiration. So the key to the science, gut, and the geometry in biomimicry was how do you integrate these scientific data sets, the engineering and design behind it, into a functional prototype that you can actually get wearer feedback on. Because everything sounds really great in a spreadsheet until it's actually on the female form and she's living her life and wearing it for 12 hours a day. So we went and started working with the designer to build prototyping, to get it on bodies, to get wearer feedback. And really it was test, adapt, repeat, and repeat, and repeat. And so really understanding what women were desiring and comfort, how to adjust the geometry to support each woman, how to adjust the bra in general aspects, maybe the traditional forms of the bra to make it more comfortable, and how to continue to press us forward in understanding to create an actual wearable piece of an apparel that was actually providing a more comfortable approach while still giving her aesthetically what she desired. So what does this all mean in regards to supply chain and sustainability and how it's core to our business? So obviously we are from Colorado, so we have a deep-seated passion for nature and environment. And really the core of our business, when we had that spark of the idea, it was very much about creating customized apparel. We had this amazing dream and vision to say, support should be inclusive, and we should be able to figure out how to support each woman based on her size and activity level and what she wants out of the product. And that has been a large part of our understanding, working and prototyping and additive manufacturing and 3D printing, being able to rapid prototype and adjust the support system for women and look at garments and products and be able to change very quickly. So we always had this really deep-seated desire to assess inventory and how that impacted business. Being someone that worked in supply chain and logistics for a long time, almost as sexy of an industry as lingerie, it just was absolutely necessary and apparent that inventory is a huge burden for brands. And how do we, especially intimate brands, 70 plus SKUs, how do we impact that while still creating access to larger sizes for women, and how do we get something that women actually want to wear? So that was a huge piece of our spark at the very beginning, is this desire to create garments for women that really worked by reducing inventory. And I think part of that also, as we see sustainability, is creating garments that actually fit, have a longer life cycle. So it's not stretching out as quickly because it's not fitting incorrectly. So really focusing on quality fit and creating longevity for that woman, but also the mental aspects of actually being able to find your size, not showing up to brick and mortar and being put in something else when really your size is something else. So having this partnership with brands to help create a vision for a piece of apparel that truly fits and is fitting for all women, that she isn't as excited to take off, that she's more excited to put it on. So as we understand this, the change in consumers shifting, right? So as brick and mortar is continuing to change and the experience in brick and mortar is changing and online is continuing to grow, consumers are really demanding this product, and we agree. We started the company on the thought that we don't have to choose. We didn't have to choose comfort or aesthetic, but that we actually got to have both. And so our vision and our alignment in supply chain and how to actually make this work is to create on-demand products for brands, for their needs. And as things begin to shift and brands begin to evolve, I think we're going to see the use of software systems that will help create patterns before garments are actually manufactured. People will be pre-buying those patterns from imaging, like Khoo, for example, is an amazing software system where you can create pattern work. You can put it online and it looks like a garment that you would have already been manufactured. So we're looking into the future and the vision of supply chain and being able to create on-demand inventories for those people, for those brands. And obviously on-demand means less waste, right? So if a brand needs 76 of something, how do you make 76 and not have minimums? And really that's through additive manufacturing and being able to create a just-in-time modeling of inventory. So our partnerships, and when we first began, were in, and still are, in additive manufacturing, and we have a deep-seated desire to continue to press for more sustainable materials in regards to the raw materials that are utilized in additive manufacturing. And there's definitely headway there. There's large corporations who are help pushing and requiring these additive companies to really find products that are recyclable, and that is our vision for the future and our hopes with those partnerships. But having a predominant focus on just-in-time inventories and being able to be nimble in our design work through additive is very much part of our story and very much has been since the beginning. Obviously, women know bras aren't the most comfortable thing. No one's rejoicing and sparking joy over putting their bra on in the morning. Maybe some of you are, but most of us aren't. And so how do we address the fact that we don't love this piece of garment that we have to wear every day? And I think that's a big part of sustainability in regards to the UN Sustainability Initiatives about mental health and women accepting their bodies as they are and creating sizing that is actually inclusive, wire-free, and aesthetically still stunning. So that's part of exactly who we are. That's part of our brand DNA and what we work to create. And from our initial spark, truly, of our hopes for creating something that women felt really great putting on. It was very comfortable, it was stunningly aesthetic, and all tied into how we can help women be happier with the garment that they have to wear. And so, in closing, I'd just like to say I'm so honored and thankful that I get to be here and to talk to you about our company, how we created it and our vision for the future, as well as I just would like to challenge you that for us, when we decided to start, it was because of a why. Why are bras so uncomfortable, and why has no one done anything about it? And instead of just kind of looking at each other and having the coffee and moving on with our day, we decided to keep talking and to spend time to figure out how we could fix it. And I never thought I would be on this stage talking to you all about how to fix bras as a woman who had nothing to do with the apparel industry. So I would challenge you that if you have something in your mind that you have a why on, that you would continue to seek knowledge on how to fix the how. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Meghan. Before I turn this over to you to see if you have some questions, I have a question. And I know you've talked about this, and I think it's very appropriate to this group. I have heard you say that innovation is collaborative, not competitive. So could you expand upon that a little?
So I think sometimes in the marketplace we're concerned about competition and sharing ideas, but I've found, and we have found, and worked really hard to create a culture of collaboration by bringing on team members who had a greater set of knowledge than us and really rising up to that knowledge. So every time we brought on someone or worked with a partner, we always asked ourselves if it would raise the bar of where we were today. So as leaders, whether you're actually leading an organization by role or you're in an organization, you are a leader. And your role really is to help bring collaboration and growth into that environment. I think the more collaborative we can be in a space, the faster things happen. So.
Any other questions?
Oh, there's microphones out in the audience if you have questions.
Hi, thank you for your talk. I'm curious to know a little bit more about the biomimicry strategy that you apply.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have this phenomenal bioscience scientist on our team that actually was 3D printing heart valves. And so part of our strategy was recognizing that there's strength in nature and how do we create in different sections of the support structure, different attributes to move and to stretch, and how do we seek those things in nature. So we were looking at spider webs, honeycombs, palm leaves, and looking at how can something stretch one way and be stiff another way. So creating a nimble approach through geometry of getting the feel that we wanted while still holding a woman's tissue in place. So it was a lot of guessing, truly, to be very transparent, and lots of iteration to really understand what was working, what wasn't working. And because we had access to 3D printing, we could 3D print 10 ideas, trial them out, and see this geometry is working, this geometry isn't working, and really seeking the shapes of strength in nature. I think, there's different shapes that have really strong attributes that you see in nature, whether it be in a spider web or a honeycomb or a palm leaf. And we kind of married everything together and really got microscopic in different aspects of where a bra cup needs the strength. So traditionally, underwires are hitting right at the rib cage. And how can you move it out maybe further into the cup to create the support system? So looking at movement in tissue where the deformation was happening, and then marrying the geometry of strength found in nature into those locations inside of the cup. So that's how we did that. But a lot of trial and error, for sure.
Right here. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I can talk really loud. Everyone heard
No, it's for the camera.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Unless you repeat it.
Oh, I can repeat it. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I have two questions.
Sure.
The first question is about your sizing. I know you mentioned that there's the sizing in the apparel industry doesn't always fit everybody, right?
Yep.
How do you guys sort of deal with that in your specific designs?
Yeah, so I would say, so she asked if the sizing in the apparel industry is kind of varied and it's not always reaching everyone who it needs to reach, and how are we addressing that aspect in our line. And so because we work with brands, there's emerging brands that have a keen interest in growing the SKU count and really catering to all the sizes possible and growing bands as well as cup sizes. So how we cater to that, specifically working with brands, is to look at the support structure to marry the weight of the tissue of that cup or those sizes and create support systems for that specific size. And so I think what's happening is there's this desire to create more sizing. There's just the how do I do this without increasing my inventory by 2 times and then not selling. So I think it's a balance of business and how do we create the inventories. Is there a way to work with the manufacturing community to create on-demand manufacturing? And from us specifically, it's about being thoughtful in the support structure to be very focused on that woman's size, her activity level, and what support she needs based on that.
So that brings me to my second question.
Sure.
About inventory, which you had mentioned before also.
Yeah.
I think you're right, this is a huge problem in the industry for everybody. But if you're selling direct, it's obviously very easy to control how much inventory you have. What do you do if you're selling to other stores because the buyers are in charge of deciding, how many SKUs or the orders of inventory and that stuff?
Yeah, I think, so she asked how do you handle if you're selling direct, if you're an online direct brand versus if you are selling into stores and they have inventory that they're trying to have access on and the buyers are buying various SKUs and maybe limiting the SKUs. How do you handle that? So a lot of that is up to our brand partners, so we're not a brand ourselves, but we partner with brands, and part of that is the conversation, I think, the shift of consumer and how they're purchasing bras. So we're seeing these emerging brands that are predominantly direct brands that are taking away from traditional brick and mortar. So what does that mean for the future? I don't know exactly, but I do think that if I knew that, I would probably buy a lottery ticket and then be on an island. But yeah, so I think who knows how inventory is going to be impacted in regards to traditional brick and mortar department stores and what that looks like for the future. I think there is definitely retailers trying a future approach of reduction in inventory and more of an experiential type experience at a brick and mortar store, which would change how the inventory, what the inventory situation is based on what's at the store. So I think for customization purposes, a blend of online mixed with experiential brick and mortar might be the difference of you get a bra created for you. You don't leave with a bra specifically, and it's created for you before you or delivered to your home. You know, who knows?
Please join me in thanking Meghan for that great job. I'd now like to introduce our next two guests, Francisco Costa and Anastasia Khoo. Francisco Costa, I am proud to say, is one of ours, an FIT alum, an acclaimed award-winning fashion designer who was, for 13 years, creative director of women's wear division at Calvin Klein Collection. He left the company 3 years ago, went south to his native Brazil, and returned in another sector of the creative industry's beauty. He founded Costa Brazil, a sustainable beauty brand that we'll be learning about in a few minutes. Anastasia Khoo is Chief Marketing Officer of Conservation International, a nonprofit organization whose daunting mission is to protect nature throughout the world. She is a celebrated communications and marketing pro who has won numerous awards from her peers. For 17 years, she headed the Human Rights Campaign's highly influential marketing efforts and became a much sought-after commentator on marketing and digital media issues. Please join me in welcoming Francisco and Anastasia.
So I took a couple of trips into the Amazon, which just as it actually happened, I left Calvin, exhausted, just decided to go to the very east coast of the Amazon. It was an insane trip, and woke me up to, the beauty which is out there, and the richness of all the ingredients that one can find. So that's how Costa really started. And why beauty, right? Why the word needed not a beauty brand? My question was, and I came to realize that there's nothing out there really that taps into clean beauty in that sense. The purest ingredients you can possibly find. So it was a journey, just launched 90 days ago. We're very excited about the prospects of the collection to be. The inspiration, of course, is Brazil, but sustainability in terms of longevity. This is a brand that we praise to be carefully, conceptualized, and we're taking our time. This is like, the packaging was was designed with longevity again in mind. We'd like the vessels to be reutilized and used, and so are the ingredients. We created batches that are very small, because most of the ingredients that we found within the Amazon, through all the trips that I've taken there, are very small, sort of, we can't get much of it. So we are basically engaging ourselves into creating a product that will change from batch to batch. It has to be looked at as a real, special, beautiful thing. Which is, you can find it in the market. The market is very polluted with, and not knowing very much about the business, the beauty business. Went into this insane journey of, searching for the right labs, which taking, quite some time, to create a product that was substantially different. So I think the engagement here with the consumer would have to be one of very mature understanding that our product is substantially different. Our ingredients are just really, really special. So we found, on my first trip, I found this one resin, which comes from the Anastasia tree, which is, this gigantic tree. This beautiful resin gets released over the tree, and Indians use that all day, basically burning it all day, all night. It was mosquito repellent, all these incredible properties. So I brought it to the US, it's a long story, and we made it into an oil, a very beautiful oil, which was basically our first ingredient. The second ingredient was cacao, which actually we sourced through Conservation International, which is a beautiful seed, high in proteic, which has really changed the whole face of this community that we should actually buy the ingredient from, which is great. Conservation International has done an amazing job in creating that sustainable way of working with communities, which I came to realize that I couldn't do it on my own, by looking at so many villages and people and how they would source all the ingredients, but that felt very secure, having done it through Conservation International, which grounded the whole project, which was really great. So here we are in this journey. It's a sustainable, it's clean, it's pure, but also we're learning, right? For me, it's so new, the whole beauty industry, and also how to activate something that's substantially that and so great. So it's a good process that we engage ourselves into finding the right people and the right partners. And we're very thrilled to have you here. And without Conservation International, really, I wouldn't be as secure, to be talking about the brand and knowing that we are on, the right path here. So, thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Francisco and Costa, Brazil, and certainly FIT for inviting Conservation International to participate in this conversation. We're working together in the Amazon, and I just wanted to sort of ground people a bit in, what we're talking about. So when people think of the Amazon, they probably think of trees, and there are quite a lot of them. It's actually the world's largest tropical rainforest. It's it has, I think, up to 1 million different kinds of species. It is really a very diverse, large area. But it's also really important from a climate perspective because it is the world's largest tropical forest. It stores, the trees and the soil actually store an immense amount of carbon. And so in the least scientific way, I'll explain when you cut down the trees, the carbon's released. When they stay planted, the carbon is absorbed. And in addition to reducing emissions around the world, which is fundamentally critical, switching to renewables, nature has a really important role to play in the fight around climate change. It is really up to 30% of the solution. So from our perspective, from Conservation International as an organization, protecting areas like the Amazon rainforest are fundamentally critical for human survival. Now, one of the other things, and Francisco mentioned this, is that the Amazon is also home to 30 million people. So people live in the Amazon, indigenous people and tribes, over 200 actually. And for us, not only are they the purveyors of a lot of traditional knowledge, of medicines and other pieces of knowledge that they can pass on to us, but they're really the stewards of the land. And at Conservation International, we really believe strongly that you can't sort of work in absence of people. This is their land, and we want to help them continue to protect that. But like everyone around the world, they're concerned with how are they going to feed their kids? Can they send their kids to school? Are they making enough money to survive? Do they have access to clean water? And those are independent. And so what we really try to do is find a way, like, can we make conservation pay? Can we make sure that people and place can survive together in the same place? And so working with companies like Costa, Brazil, who, helping them to source materials that are indigenous to those lands, helps provide funds to those communities. And it really is like a circular effect in so many ways, that they can stay on the land, the trees can sustain us, because as you also know, the Amazon provides 20% of our world's oxygen, but that these communities can really thrive in the place that they want to be and where their ancestors have been, for hundreds of years. So it's a critical component to the work that we do. But we also know that the Amazon is threatened, certainly at a tipping point. It is a challenge, at the moment when deforestation rates continue to grow. And in fact, at the recent presidential election, during that time period, a 3-month time period, deforestation actually went up by 50%. So we're at a really critical time, and we know that the solution, and particularly around climate change, can fundamentally, not just rely on protecting forests, and that is absolutely important and a chief component of our work. But we also have to think about reforesting these areas. And so we have engaged in one of the world's largest, if not the largest, reforestation project to essentially plant 73 million trees in this area where it's pointed at the headwaters of the state of Mato Grosso to help reforest that area. Now, we're not talking about planting like evergreen pine trees there. We're using native seeds and native trees to help, bring that, what we hope will bring this back to its original state eventually. But 73 trees is a lot of trees. It's actually the equivalent of 30,000 soccer fields. It's 30,000 hectares, 30,000 soccer fields is sort of in your mind. So it looks like a small piece, but it's actually quite substantial. And this is really important because we know last year the IPCC came out with a report. Essentially 91 scientists from 40 countries examined more than 6,000 pieces of science. And they essentially said we've got about 10 to 12 years to get this right before we reach a tipping point in terms of the climate. So in some ways it's a challenge because what we're talking about to not reach the warming that you essentially can't come back from, which they've estimated at 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit. We need to make some radical changes. So it's daunting, right? But on the other hand, it's an opportunity because we've never before had a timeline to get this right. And we believe strongly that from protecting in place, from really creating sustainable models where people in place can thrive, and then also from reforestation efforts like this, we can help change the conversation in addition to those other components. And I think, that's what's exciting about working with Costa Brazil. It's we need models of businesses stepping up, and because it's not good enough anymore to say, do no harm. It's fundamentally, how are you leaving the world in a better place? And I think that we all have that collective responsibility, whether it's individuals as consumers, as citizens, businesses and governments, to actually make real change. And I loved Francisco's quote about essentially beauty, and I think that is, fundamentally what FIT teaches, how do you create, and make the world more beautiful. For us at Conservation International, we certainly believe that nature can thrive with people in a thoughtful, respectful way, but that we all have to be a partner in doing that. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
And we launched on December 16th and the 21st. We did a small campaign via social media, and we managed to collaborate today to plant 6,000 trees in 3 days, which is really remarkable, because we had a very small following at the time, but we created this campaign which we donate, to an emoji that we sent to a friend of ours. So, and that's how we see this collaboration be, long term, really, and just really working together and doing it.
Yeah, it's been amazing, and I think, to see that sort of interest, especially, it just really took off. It was no small feat to sort of do 6,000 trees, but really substantial.
We do what we can, it's small, and it's very exciting.
Thank you so much. And now we'd like to open the floor to questions. There's microphones that will go around, so please raise your hand.
Hi, my name's Noelle. I'm actually an alum of here as well, and I love the fashion, mass market fashion industry, to come here and see how I can be more sustainable in my work. So I wanted to commend you first for everything that you're doing. I think it's amazing, especially I know there's a lot of really significant indigenous tribes that haven't even had contact with modern world in Brazil. So sustaining that as well, especially you mentioned the presidential election, and I heard that neoliberal president is going to eradicate a lot of the rainforest, and that's what he, campaigned on. But from what I know about Brazil, the biggest thing that is endangering the rainforest is cutting down wood to grow soya for our meat industry, industrial meat farming. That seems to be the biggest threat. So coming up with business models like this that actually value the rainforest in its state that it's in, natural state, to offset that other demand of industrial meat. That's amazing. I'm really interested to hear more about that, and then maybe if you're doing any collaboration with other companies with sourcing and so forth. I think the Body Shop does a lot of natural products, and the acai product. So we're talking about collaboration.
Well, actually, my second trip into the Amazon was with the CEO of IFF, and a couple of executives from Natura. And Natura is one of the largest, beauty companies in Brazil. So I got to understand that as I was visiting all the communities and what have you, it felt quite monopolized in a way. It felt to me that obviously those companies were doing really well in the area, supporting the communities. But my personal view that I could not even engage myself into any business discussions because it was already taken. So that's how Conservation International helped me navigate through that. But I think what's really important to understand too is that the Indians, they really hold, the natives, they hold the key to the Amazon, right? So protecting them, then you're protecting everything. And what's going on in Brazil right now is that they want to take all their rights again. On my first visit, I went to the Manaus tribe, which is actually in the state of Acre. And it was such an amazing, incredible experience because they had just received all their land back, major states basically, given back to this community, to this ethnicity, which was great. So they had invited us, 50 people from all places in the world to actually come and understand their culture and their beliefs and how they actually operate. So seeing that how the government now is putting everything in danger is really complicated. It's really tough. Yeah, so we need to be more there, more engaged throughout.
I think I would just add, you're exactly right, like deforestation to soy and essentially for meat is one of the prime drivers. I think the president has indicated that he would like to open the Amazon up significantly. And that's really, certainly a frightening prospect for all of us. I think one of the easiest solutions is as a consumer, certainly we encourage on the small acts on, a very individual level, eat less meat, to working with, multinationals to help change their sourcing, help change, all of the aspects of business to help make it more sustainable. So there are certainly individual actions that you can take, but businesses also have a responsibility there too.
Hi, alumni as well, but because of the overconsumption in fashion, I switched into digital and philanthropy. Thank you so much for speaking today. It's incredibly informative. When you talk about your packaging and being thoughtful about it being reusable, I'd love to know more about your packaging and what you've done, either working with the communities or recyclables, etc. And then just looking at your price point, I glanced at your site, it seems elevated, almost in the luxury space. I understand that possibly is so that you can, again, donate to plant trees and everything. And then does that also feed into limited supply so that you're not interested in, if the demand increases and you're going to figure out how to get more of that oil or that nut. It's a matter of, no, this is how much they have, this is how much we're going to use, and we're going to keep it at this level so that we don't end up kind of in the same place that a lot of brands have ended up.
Well, I think that's a very exciting part of the brand, being so small and taking our time and actually really build it in such a way. For instance, when we discovered this seed called kaya, it's out of this indigenous tree, Brazilian indigenous tree, and it's this pod, almost prehistorical. And we challenged this lab to create an oil for us, which they did. And it tested that the oil is super powerful. It has 50% more vitamin E than argan oil, for instance. So we're dealing with something really extraordinary. But it crops once a year, which is November, and it crops 600 kilos a year. So it's very limited, right? So we already purchased last year's crop again. So you're gonna have to deal with the scarcity. And I think that's the beauty of the brand, and that's how it separates us from anybody else. You have that really organicness in the product, and it really makes a difference. That's when it comes to the sourcing, we really believe that. And then we created this jungle oil complex, which really is, a name that will be able to increase or decrease certain ingredients based upon, we have already found so many other ingredients that are just incredible. That will be adding to it, as we go along. So it's a very untapped world, very honestly. We know the acais, we know this and that, but you turn around and if you did do a test on that flower, that seed, you're going to find amazing things, which we have, which I'm very proud of. When it comes to packaging, to me, that was the most challenging. Why? Because obviously being very visual, and I wanted things to be done with certain standards in mind, All of our packaging is really customized to us, so it's very expensive. It's very, very time consuming, and I couldn't, for instance, do it anywhere else but in China, which I question, very much, But again, as we go along, we're finding ways of going about it. For instance, we are on our amenities program that we have with a special hotel chain in Brazil, and hopefully here in the US as well. We're using a plastic that's a derivative of sugarcane. So the process is kinder. And hopefully with, again, partnering with this one company that we're talking to, that they will take all the bottles back. So we're creating the full cycle. Although most of the packaging that we're doing, it's just so beautiful that we feel like we need to reuse them. We feel like we need to collect them. But when it comes to bath and body, we might have the plastic there, which is like unfortunate. But again, it's a learning curve. We're very new at this, and we're doing our diligence.
Hi, Francisco. I'm also from Brazil. I'm an alumni from FIT.
Hi.
And I understand your disenchantment with the fashion industry and to the point that drove you toward the cosmetic industry. And I'd like to know if there is any findings on your research on the textile industry for sustainability.
Well, I have very honestly, there's a lot, right? But there's so many. When you talk about sustainability, it's also how can we appropriate, right? I think that there's so much waste out there, and the perfect example, doesn't go very far. Quilt. It is a way of being sustainable, creating something new out of something else. So I haven't really gone in depth into the textile world, but I did find in this area out of Acre region in Brazil, this leather that's a rubber, made out of rubber. So it has basically a cloth, and it's a rubberized cloth, which looks exactly like leather. I understand that the Hermes have tapped into it in the past, trying to utilize and what have you. But initially it was a little complicated. So I'm talking to this one supplier, in other words, this one community who actually does it very, very simply, and trying to improve that so we can use that for accessories, actually to support the line. When we're talking about, an amenities program, what goes inside, so we'll probably be using that. Which is very interesting, it's very, very cool. All right.
Everyone, please join me in thanking Francisco.
Thank you, guys.
I'd like you now to join me in welcoming Jaime Bartholomai, who is in international sales and marketing and is the manager for STOLL America Knitting Machinery. Jaime is a marketing professional who has worked for fashion startups, licensing, and intellectual property ownership firms. Her experience includes PR, digital marketing, industry relations, and communications. STOLL technology is an important component of FIT's impressive knitwear program. Please join me in welcoming Jaime.
Thank you so much, Joanne, and I also want to say a big thank you to FIT on behalf of all of STOLL. Not only is university relationships what we're all about at this company, but we also want to make sure that we are constantly educating the new industry leaders of tomorrow. So, I wanted to start off today by asking everybody, who here by a show of hands is familiar with knitting or STOLL? Oh wow, you're making my life a lot easier. Okay. So for
those of you that don't know, STOLL is a world-renowned OEM of flatbed knitting machinery. Now, we have been around for 145 years to this date. It was founded actually in 1873 by Henrik STOLL himself. And currently to this day, we have 900 employees worldwide with 6 subsidiaries, and we are represented in over 50 different countries. Now, each year, one of the reasons that we're known as a global innovator is because of the fact that we have sold over 100,000 CMS machines from 1873 to this day, with 6,000 machines sold a year and over 100 issued patents. So, without going through the complete timeline for you, one of the most interesting facts about STOLL is the technological advances that we've made with our machines. Some of which started off with the simple hand flat machines that you may see either at FIT or even at STOLL America in New York, all the way to the original 2-system machine and the original CMS machines. And now we have today our high-performance machines and our ADF technology, along with our software solution of Intelligence. Now, at STOLL, even though our bottom line is selling machines, we need services that cater to such. And we have 2 departments that will fulfill those needs, one of which is our Fashion and Technology department. At Fashion and Technology, we have fashion centers all over the world. One of the most well-known is STOLL America here in New York. At these fashion centers, we work and consult with large brands, small brands, designers alike, in order to provide them with the knitting know-how that they may need to construct new garments. We also provide different patterning techniques and a lot of different knitting know-how that might not be as common. And every year, our head of fashion technology, York Hartman, launches a new trend collection. And what is really phenomenal about these collections, not just aesthetically speaking, is the fact that it is almost impossible to actually knit these pieces in a production type setting. This is because of the fact that the pieces are so complex. It actually is meant to inspire designers. And basically what they'll see is they'll say, okay, so I want to take this structure and incorporate it into this hoodie that I'm making, for example. And our knit specialists will help them guide them through that process of how they can make it feasible. Another department that we have that'll cater to our bottom line is our Technical Textiles department. For Technical Textiles, this is taking a step back from fashion for a moment because the industries that we cater to are industries that you would never expect that would be interested in knitting or incorporate knitting into their products. These industries are represented in what we call our TT clusters, which is a fancy way of saying our TT divisions. And the most popular of these are TT Mobility, which is the automotive industry for knitted automotive interiors and car seats. Also, we have TT Med, which is for healthcare such as compression bandages for people with diabetes and arthritis, as well as knee braces. We also have TT Home, which is for home interior and also for office furniture. And last but not least, our most popular would be TT Sport. Now, TT Sport is what you may know from our famous shoe uppers and performance apparel pieces. And also TT department, before I stop with this section, they are also very well known for incorporating nanotechnology, heat set elements, yarn, fibers, filaments, and they really help these industries that do not know how to incorporate knitting, how they can actually get no material limitations with 3D knitting in complex shapes. So now that you know a little bit more about STOLL, if you didn't know about them already, innovation and sustainability for why we're here today is the market challenges that we face in manufacturing. Every day we talk with customers that deal with these challenges, and they can account for yarn and fabric waste consumption, the integration of smart textiles, manpower, also it can be price pressure of the knitted goods, and automation and digitization, the fast copying culture and e-commerce, and then also we have time of market and create your own or customization. Now, for STOLL, as a constant innovator of our technology, how we're able to actually be more sustainable year to year can be actually summarized in either our knit and wear technology and machines, our ADF machinery, and as well as Intelligence, which we'll dive into in further slides. So before I go into explaining knit and wear, for those of you who might not be familiar with it, some companies will call it whole garment or seamless knitting. It's good to understand the basics of knitting technologies. So we have cut and sew, which is, in essence, the machine will knit full yardage, and then you literally cut out the patterns and assemble them together. This is, unfortunately, the most cost-effective solution for companies, and it's probably the most used, I would say. And as such, it actually is the least sustainable just because of the waste and the fabric consumption that it takes. Fully fashioned is a fine medium. It is literally where you will knit off, let's say, a sleeve of a sweater, a front, a back, and then you link and finish it together to create the garment. And knit and wear, what I love about this is it's the simplicity. It's you knit it and you wear it. You literally have a full sweater off of the machine. Now, with knit and wear, for knit and wear, the key takeaway is it is very idyllic for repeat orders. And this is a machine that is very much preferred in the production environment. It has the reduction of manpower just because of the fact that there's very little to no waste, no finishing or linking is really required, unless of course you want to add a specific trim or collar to a sweater. And you can still do some unique shapes as well. Now, with every technology that somebody uses, even if you think of your iPhone and every time you need to update an application, there are always some limitations, which we are always working on year to year to make better. And for knit and wear currently, what we have is the fact that it's more simpler styles that are being knit off of these machines, just because of the fact that complex structures such as intarsia or double layers, it's not as easy to do this off of these machines. And the biggest, I would say the biggest limitation of the machines themselves is the fact that to do a full knit and wear garment takes a lot of knitting time. So it makes it very expensive. So if you're a brand and you want to invest in a machine and you're thinking about knit and wear just for the sustainability reasons, which is amazing, you also have to think in terms of your consumer, right? You have to think, is my consumer actually going to go to a store and see two sweaters that look very similar to one another, and one may be $100, one may be $50. The only difference is that one is seamless. Will they really care that one has seams or not? So that's something that brands need to really ask themselves. So another solution that we have for sustainability is our ADF family of machines. Now, the ADF machines are best known for their flexibility, their diversity, and their efficiency. Now, for those of you that are not machinery fiends in the audience, the one thing you can take away from this machine is that the yarn carriers move independently from the carriage. And this is huge. The reason for this is that on a typical CMS machine, a computerized machine, one yarn carrier essentially equals one structure. So what that means is with the ADF machine and the ability for one carrier to be independent from the carriage, you can go from a very complex structure to a basic structure within one order. And all of this creates an optimized knitting time and knitting sequences, making your time shorter. And that's actually, it's very convenient for designers and for manufacturers. Now, where knit and wear was more popular for production setting, the ADF machines are more popular for people that are interested in R&D and development because of the freedom that you really have with this machine to do all sorts of crazy different products. And you can incorporate very complex techniques such as intarsia, plaiting, and one of our favorites is the STOLL weave-in, for which you can actually knit a fabric that's as tight as a woven. Another factor that can make the ADF machines very interesting is the fact that you can knit conductive wires such as copper throughout the knitted garment, and it's not apparent on the outer surface at all. So this is a very big machine for a lot of technical textiles customers. Now, without going through every single machine component for you, just so you can kind of get a glance, you can see the yarn carriers up here and how they can go up, down, left to right. You can also see here the weave-in device, the takedown system, and just some of the components in a nutshell. Now, for my favorite part of this presentation is really encompassing how STOLL is a global workforce of the future. Now you can see where we're represented here all over the globe, but now it's in a very advanced digital sense. And this is done through STOLL's Intelligence platform. So Intelligence, the easiest way to explain this to everybody is it is a modular system for which all of our software solutions are combined. So when you have every single software system of Intelligence, you are having a completely automated production system, which means you are having a completely sustainable manufacturing environment. And Intelligence will take you all the way from design and pattern creation to the creation of shapes and grading, to IP protection, production planning, all the way through to manufacturing at scale. So the first software tool that I want to discuss with you today is STOLL Artwork. This is our newest software that we released last year. And STOLL Artwork is actually an Adobe Photoshop extension, and it's used to better communicate between designers and technicians. Now, the reason that this is important is because we'll have at our fashion centers that we discussed previously, designers will come in and they'll show us either their tech packs, their designs, their sketches, and the programmers with their knitting know-how will take that information and they will input that into their M1 Plus program. Now, when this happens, there's always some type of miscommunication that could take place, for instance, which could lead to a deformation of the pattern, just because the simple know-how between the two. Now, when you have STOLL Artwork, what this does is the designer can actually input their design into Photoshop, and Photoshop can recognize certain errors that could take place from knitting on the machine due to the machine's capabilities. Once all of that is done, we can actually import this file into the M1 Plus program. So that way, it makes the programmer's life easier and there's a very low possibility of any deformation happening. Okay. So the next one that we have is STOLL Auto Create. STOLL Auto Create goes into the customization challenge that I discussed earlier. It enables the full automation of the pattern generation process. How this is done is you have different variations when you're a designer or a brand. You might want different shapes, different colorways, different sizes. Auto Create makes it possible for a create your own experience because this software again can connect to the M1 Plus and then be knitted off the machine right away. And then you have M1 Plus, which we've been talking about a little bit. M1 Plus is actually a complete necessity for a programmer. If you have a machine, this is actually something that is required in a package when you buy a machine. This is because it is the tool that the programmers use to completely create the knitting program. You can't knit without this. It also, it enables the technicians to intervene at any point in time too for any knitting techniques, any issues that the machine could have. It's a great power tool. Now for GKS, this is more for the technical designer. It allows for the creation, the modifications, the optimization, and the importation of a grading file with one pattern. So let's say that you have one tech pack table where you have all your sizes for bust, waist, hip measurements, but you just have it for one pattern. This system can take for this one pattern all of that data, and it can also be imported into the M1 Plus program and knitted off the machine, so orders can just keep going continuously. It saves about 80% of the time for the tech designers to the programmers. And then we have SIN, which is our Central Crypto Infrastructure. Now, what's interesting about this program is that going into fashion business, any program that you have as a brand is going to be an extremely valuable piece of intellectual property. And given the fast copying culture challenge that we mentioned for the market, it's very easy for somebody to hack and get this information, which could be extremely detrimental for the brand. With the SIN system, we actually make a completely protected program for you. And the way that we're able to control this is we have the programs can only be knitted on certain machines during specific time frames. And then also, it is completely illegible to the human eye. So whether you are knitting off of your own machine here in the US, or if you send your program for mass production overseas, you're completely protected. Sorry. There we go. So for PPS, this is our production planning system. And what's great about this system is the fact that you can literally plan out your knitting process. It has a complete optimization for production, and it'll make you more competitive as a business. And also it can link to any of our software tools and machinery, from M1 Plus to ERP to the OKC or EK systems of different machinery. And the key takeaway from having PPS is the fact that you can have reduced rejection rates, you can have a shorter reaction time, you're able to deploy your manpower more efficiently, automation and digitization is possible. And also on top of that, you can count and keep track of your yarn inventory a lot easier. So APM, this is the last one that we have for intelligence, and this is actually my personal favorite because as intriguing as it is, it's also a little bit freaky. It's APM is a fully automated system for which if you have, let's say you have a machine and you have your own factory. Every machine has this long red lever that is the start and stop function. So let's say that at this factory that you own, you also have the PPS system. And it's after hours, everyone's gone from the facility, but you still have multiple orders that you need to take care of. With PPS and APM, what'll happen is you schedule the new order, and instead of having a human interface to physically start and stop this machine, once an order comes down from the machine and it's already finished, the APM automatically starts this lever, almost like a ghost factory, which is pretty interesting. So the benefits at a glance from intelligence after going through all of the individual software components is that it really tackles every market challenge that we discussed. You have complete automation and digitization. You're able to protect yourself against the fast copying culture. You're able to have complete, create your own customization purposes. The time to market is increased, reduced manpower, and it's very limited waste. So with all three sustainability options that STOLL can provide that we discussed, with STOLL Knit and Wear, ADF machines, and then intelligence, if you are able as a customer to have all three components in your factory, mill, or even to invest in this overseas for your production, you are already one step ahead of the game because you have a complete sustainable process and you've already entered into advanced manufacturing as you know it today. That's it.